Now that brings me to this question because I can see some commonalities. But let me upfront ask you, what are the core values and processes that you have lived by?
I would say always staying conscious about the reasons for spending all the hours of my day. And it's not easy, and I'm not perfect at it, but you kind of have to continuously think about um, being being yourself an investor of your own time. It's the single most valuable thing we have. And how much of it do you spend pursuing your dream? Perhaps getting stuck on the wrong projects, getting stuck on the wrong people too, right? And making sure you devote enough time to taking really good care of yourself. So time management is really, really hard, but as an entrepreneur, you have to be really, really good at it. And more specifically on the entrepreneurship side itself, I would say I'm personally very strict about delivering on my promises and just making sure I give my customers and users not only what's required by contract, but also what is required, not required, but reasonably expected. And while doing so, sort of maintaining a set of ethics that does just that. And at times it does make it harder to build a company. It's harder to compete when there's a lot of folks cutting corners and doing things sort of in a more sloppy fashion. But in the end, these are the values that make customers trust in you and your business and allow you to succeed long term. So I think it's really important to not get distracted by what your competitors are doing and what others are doing in terms of, building sloppy products or building sloppy privacy policies or what have you, but really just staying true to those values.
It's amazing. So integrity, accountability, discipline.
Exactly.
If I had to put
Yeah,
it
precisely.
simply. Yes, and I know how valuable integrity is to you because that also reflected in our courses and all the examples that you gave. So thanks for being that person. And talking about the values, I have also noticed that you embody the true spirit of creating a playbook for outliers through your businesses, which is all in all bootstrapped. And it is pretty rare because it is easier to bet on someone else's money, right? To get VCs involved and whatnot. And taking that risk of bootstrapping, what made you develop that mindset? And how do you recommend that people develop that mindset while succeeding and shaping their own journeys approach?
For any entrepreneur, I think being able to bootstrap is really important. Whether or not you're raising outside funding, I guess most companies ultimately do raise outside capital, but being able to show even to investors as well that you're able to be efficient, frugal, and humble, I think those three things really characterize what I feel are the most important aspects of this bootstrapping mindset. So in terms of efficiency, I mean, like, um, can you have a smaller team to achieve the same thing? Um, when I talk about frugality, I mean, like, do you need to go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars on something you possibly don't need? Like, being able to question every expense, being able to understand, is it actually driving value to your end goal, or is it just, you have the money, therefore you have this office space? Do you need the office space in the first place? Like, ask yourself questions about everything you spend on, and ask yourself about, how many people do you need on the team? How efficient are they individually and as a team collectively as well? Like, are they scheduling 10 meetings for no reason, or can they get something done individually? And there are obviously trade-offs in a lot of these things, but it's really, really important to have those top of mind all the time. And the third aspect I mentioned is, I would say it's like humility, I guess, like being okay without having immediate profit and not being afraid to give away all your initial money to what helps invest into the long-term momentum of your business. For example, when I started Convasis, I mean, I I did it on like a $600 budget, or maybe even less. I think I probably spent a couple $100 on some website stuff and registering the company. Um, my my very first my first major customer, I would say, that came to me, you know, I didn't really know exactly how to build the product. I said I did. I actually did not entirely, and I was lucky to have a good friend who was a software developer who did know all these things, and I had absolutely no problem giving him all the proceeds from the project just so that he could get me and the business kind of up and running. Um, so that also I could learn from him and figure out how this all works, like all the technology that was required by that business. But my point is, to not think of everything from the very beginning as necessarily um, a necessity of chasing that profit, but thinking about not just the money you invest directly, but how can you um, build the business's momentum by investing whatever resources come your way, whether it's client projects or brands or what have you, and just being able to um, sacrifice a little bit of income initially for that longer term success. And I mean, it worked out really well. So I'm glad I did those things. But um, yeah, and as part of that, just like one last thing I wanted to mention is it really helps to really helps to learn to do a lot of things yourself, rather than just outsourcing every little thing that you don't know how to do. Learn to do things yourself, like just pick up a book, take a course, and I think that really helps with both the other things I mentioned in terms of efficiency and frugality and so on.
And that's a humbleness that you shared this example with us. Interesting thing that you used there is sacrifice. So, can you give me a rough idea of should it be time capped or should it be quantity capped? As in, when do you know that you have sacrificed enough and now your maybe mindset should shift, or let's say, even if not mindset shift, but in a way, what is the right time and right balance to have it run as a successful business?
There's no real like one size fits all answer to that. It's there's no like necessarily a formula for it. It's just trust your instincts. It's going to really depend on the nature of your business and your financial circumstances and how much time and energy you're willing to commit to this. So, uh, like, I don't really have a short answer for that.
No worries. And now then, let's move to what all of this brought as one of the key achievements, I would say. I know you have many achievements, but top 5 under 25. What was the most unexpected thing that came from being named as one of the top 5 under 25?
So I would say just being named top 525 entrepreneurs in the country was a pretty big deal in itself and was quite unexpected to begin with. Um, that came with a lot of fairly expected outcomes, like more business coming my way and all that sort of thing. But as far as like what was really unexpected is, I mean, it's really basic things in life. Like I made a very good friend that way. I had a client. I had a client who found out about me through the magazine, and she started off as my client, but we worked together for a couple of years and just became really good friends. And to this day, we still are. And I mean, it really does matter a lot because there's not a lot of true close friends that you can really talk about like all the deep things in life about, and this was just one of those people. I mean, you never know when you'll meet them. You'll have a couple of them in your life, maybe a few, but that was really surprising for sure.
So it is actually the opposite of what people think, that once you get famous, people only connect for the selfish reasons. You actually found something totally opposite and you're able to connect so deeply that you could actually share the depth of life with them. So that is amazing. And I think that would be one of the key takeaways from audience today, for our audience today as well, to break that stereotype or that thought process. Now let's switch the gears and let's come to your corporate life. So I know you have had a very wonderful entrepreneurial journey, and I'm sure everyone here could figure it out as well. So tell me about the biggest challenge you faced transitioning from the entrepreneurial side to the corporate side.
Go straight back to those core principles I mentioned, efficiency and frugality. Those are very much missing in a lot of corporate settings when you have people to fill every single narrow role and job description, when you have unlimited resources, well, more or less compared to a bootstrap startup, for doing anything you need. Like you need to write a privacy policy and terms of use and do a privacy review. You have lawyers to hire, and you have money to pay them, and and when you have this sort of easier access to the resources, the efficiency of them goes way down. Like I'm talking like 10x, 50x, maybe even more. You really can do a lot of things much, much more efficiently with a small, high-performance team than you can in a large organization. And I'm not saying it's always like that, but that was one of the biggest challenges in terms of going into an environment where, things are not as frugal and efficient. Maybe they do move quickly to some extent, but like you need a lot more people to make the same thing happen.
So that is a very interesting take on the difference between the entrepreneurial side and the corporate side. Let me ask you this. Let's say you were given this opportunity of building a product dream. What are the roles? What is the mindset? What are the rituals that you would go for?
I would say very small team, very high performance team. And what I mean by that is have a few generalists so that you won't need a committee to make every little decision, which otherwise in a corporate setting would require somebody filling each individual narrow role. So like in the enterprise world where I work, we have UX designers, we have architects and engineers, and obviously the product managers and a whole bunch of other people. But a lot of small decisions could be made much more efficiently if a generalist product manager of sorts was able to do that themselves and not have to consult with every specific, like, here's the person who's responsible for this button, here's the person who's responsible for that button. So we need like all of them on the same meeting to figure out how this works. And I mean, in some contexts that can be justified, but for the most part, it's a huge waste of time and resources. Otherwise, I would say keep specialists only for things that are truly ultra difficult. So like have very, very good specialized people for things that have never been done before. So that's on the small team part. Otherwise, I mean, really important to be highly diverse. And I don't see that all that much, except in certain companies like in Google, for example, we do a pretty good job of diversity. But a lot of startups try to kind of hire their friends or friends of friends or people in their same community. And it's not very efficient because everyone thinks more or less the same way. Like they more or less speak the same language, have a similar background. And when I talk about diversity, it's not for the sake of putting a checkbox on your website saying that we hire people of every race and religion. It's really for the purpose of being a lot more productive, for being more creative, for having those different perspectives, different ways of actually thinking. And that's how you become a lot more efficient. And similarly, when I talk about those generalists and specialists, hire people with no ego, like no one who would say that's not my job. And at the end of the day, people with customer empathy who can envision how the product is going to be used by that end user that we're going to be selling this to. So whether they're an engineer or a UX designer or a product manager or a lawyer, whoever you hire people with really strong customer empathy. Really, really key.
Wow. When I build a business, I am taking serious consideration on that part for sure. I have already taken notes on this, so thanks for that. And you mentioned Google, so let's talk about that a bit now. I know that you have worked in two out of five dream companies every IT person would have. So, okay, this may be a difficult one for you, but which one is your favorite, personal favorite?
To work for, probably Google. Amazon is an amazing company and was very rewarding to work at. But Google does take much better care of its employees overall. I would say it's just more comfortable to work at.
Totally understand. And what surprised you the most when working for both?
Well, at Amazon, what really surprised me was the incredible speed at which they're still able to move forward in spite of its already tremendous size. So Amazon is a gigantic company. When I joined back in 2020, they already had 800,000 employees. Like, this is huge. And and I would have thought that, the larger the company, the slower it is to make change and build new products. But that was not the case at Amazon. And I was really surprised how all of that is driven by just the company culture overall, like the leadership principles that were set into the company's structure from the very start by Jeff Bezos, and evolved obviously over time, but things that are very frequently overlooked in a company made Amazon so good at what it does. At Google, I would say um, how much the company truly values the privacy and security of its customers' data. There's a lot of skepticism and anxiety about this. I've heard a lot of things, but it does say a lot when you, as a product manager, try to get some basic analytics that's not even personally identifiable. And you're told we can't collect that because it could theoretically somehow connect a few dots here and there that tie back to a user. And it's almost impossible to bypass those protocols because all those policies are in place to make sure it doesn't happen. So really, really amazing how serious they are about those things.
That's amazing. I'm sure that Google product users will now be a little relieved when it comes to the privacy, listening from you firsthand. And so that is really surprising for me too, understanding all of this. And I understand that Google and Amazon being very different companies in their own ways, you have not only worked in different companies but also in different domains. For example, UX heavy ones, the cloud first approach, the data driven platforms, and whatnot. So, how do you adapt to these different domains and how do you still keep the product mindset at the center of it all?
Hmm. How do you adapt a product mindset? I guess I don't really adapt the mindset. It's just I try to keep them all in mind. And, you know, as you're working on a product, just sort of try to concurrently consider all the implications on the user experience and the data architecture. Because if you try to separate them out, you're going to move very, very slowly, and you're going to possibly move in different directions. And I've seen this be a problem even at the large companies I work at, where people are so specialized and you do have to have um, different people responsible for those areas. And um, like as a product manager, you have to be the glue of all of this, and you have to make sure that people are working on the same page, that the data-driven folks are very much thinking about the user experience as well, and vice versa. So the user experience folks are very much informed about the back end and the data side. Uh, I guess like you could think of it as maintaining first principles thinking, like just breaking down the problem to its roots and not trying to copy paste what's been done by other teams or other products, but really just question everything you're doing and make sure that um, you're building a good user experience while concurrently building a scalable, reliable, and secure data infrastructure. Uh, what it really boils down to is, we're talking about complex, possibly very large, cloud scale products. But at the end of the day, everything is built for human usage. So, folks might say, well, we need to prioritize, the server architecture or performance or something like that. But I mean, everything at the end of the day needs to be, first of all, optimized for the human consumer that's going to be using the product.
That is a very interesting take. And you talked about competitors are not necessarily having all the focus there. But there is this connotation that market is becoming more and more saturated at times as time goes by, and so is the attention span decreasing. So, in such an environment, what does having a great product mean to you? While obviously balancing all of the factors that you just mentioned with all of the stakeholders and customers.
It's pretty simple, I think. A great product doesn't need to fight for attention. It just needs to be much better than everything else. Something people really, really need to use, not just want to use, but need to use. So it needs to solve a real, real deep need. But at the same time, the solution needs to be elegant, no matter what. It needs to be simple, elegant, and just work. As far as what I said about fighting for attention, I mean something that just kind of organically attracts the target users. So if you need a really big marketing campaign around it, and billboards and TV advertisements to convince people, it's probably not a great product. I mean, there are exceptions to that, and sometimes companies just have billions of dollars lying around for big marketing budgets. But when you're building something new and small, I would say that's the case. And I just wanted to point out what I mean by, and this is important, what I mean by a product that just works. The most important thing to focus on, I would say, of anything in your product is the onboarding process, like the first user experience. It needs to be frictionless. Most people end up not using a product because of that onboarding experience. Like when you study all the funnel analyses from marketing campaigns or the product metrics, most users drop off when they're trying to figure out what their product's about and really how to start using it. So that has to be absolutely frictionless.
It is fascinating how I am revising all the concepts because customer journey map just flashed like that in my mind when you said about the friction and the exercise that we did on how and where the pain points lie in the journey. So maybe we can be proactive about that before launching the product. And to add on to the marketing side of thing, I was reading this book and I talked about this book in a different podcast as well. It is called Hacking Growth. And there is a fun fact mentioned in that book which talks about how to make products self-marketing products. So it is not the billboards which are marketing the products, but how do you embed things in products that goes automatically would turn out to be either the most lovable products or would market themselves without a single penny spent or at very low cost. So definitely hearing from the expert and then aligning the thought process with the growth hackers. So that is amazing. And that brings me because we talked about hacking growth as well. There comes the future and the related growth. So, what do you think the future holds for us, especially with AI and so many tools, especially the no coding tools evolving so fast? And I'm particularly asking about the future of product management here when I say us. So, my tribe, our tribe.
Product management itself is going nowhere, I think. There's a lot of talk about, is AI going to replace us as product managers? Um, Honestly, I don't think so. With engineers, it's a little different, and there's definitely a greater risk, even though that also I think is not necessarily going away. But with PMs, I mean, um, AI is just a really good tool, but at the end of the day, a product manager sits between the customers and engineers, and essentially has to just be really good at understanding people. Needs to be emotional because that's part of the point, and needs to spend a lot of time with the customers, like actually talk to customers, have interactions online in meetings, in person at conferences, and customers don't want to talk to a robot. I mean, customers want to build a relationship with you, and vice versa. Like, I have a major client at Google, for example. This gentleman manages thousands of databases at this really big enterprise, but he calls me on WhatsApp to talk about life, just to talk about real estate and how the family is doing, where people are going on vacation. And that's really important for building a relationship with a customer. So AI is not going to replace that. It's just going to maybe help us do our jobs more efficiently. Maybe even free us up to spend more time with the customers than dealing with things like market research, for example.
It's amazing. And reminded me of two of the most, obviously, I respect all of our customers equally, but there was this particular on-site and we had such a good relation. This was for Thomson Reuters, and we had such a good relation that they're like, we are going for a weekend getaway and you have to join us. This is non-negotiable. So yes, in fact, having the customer relationship is the key, and totally agree on. Don't want to talk with the bots. I mean, sure, for the productivity side of it or adaptability to AI side of it, sure. But yes, I have had one or two incidents where I had to talk about something with a telecom company, and I was so sick of talking to the bot. And was like, no, give me a human. I need to talk to them and explain what my problem is. So highly relatable there as well. And
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
uh-huh.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to empathize with the user. A robot is never going to be in the shoes of the customer. Like, literally, you cannot understand a user if you're not human. Like, you have to really imagine what it's going to be like to use the product. You have to imagine what someone's going to really feel, and I don't think AI is ever going to be able to do that because it's not in a human shell, right? It doesn't feel pain, it doesn't feel anger. So
That's amazing. And I think you are giving a lot of relief on a lot of aspects to our audience. So thanks for that too. Now, given that you have shared so many great insights and learnings too, let me ask you another tricky question. If you were asked to be a full-time entrepreneur again, what would your take be on it?
100%. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and when the time is right, I'll make the transition back into the startup world. That's going to happen. It's just gotta wait for the right moment, I think.
It's just, I think you are also reminiscing all of the parts of your businesses and related journeys. So I am sure that there might have been many accomplishments besides the ones that you have already talked about. Can you share some accomplishments, or at least one accomplishment with us, which you are most proud of, and that can be either professional or personal.
Professional or personal?
Yeah.
Ooh, well, uh, so like all the professional ones I think are a little more self-explanatory. One thing I don't talk a lot about is something that I've really been challenged with on a personal level. Um, Back when I was 18 until I was around 26 or so, I had a pretty bad speech problem. Like I had a pretty severe stutter, much more pronounced than it is today. Like I could barely get a sentence out in some cases. And building a business was really, really hard with that situation. Like, making a phone call to a client or trying to make sales, um, doing a presentation or meeting people at a conference. Like, it really sucked. So uh, I think overcoming that and being able to have built Convesis and do all of the other work that I did during that time and now as well has probably been a lot harder than anything else that might be obvious in building a career of the sort. So um, I would say that's definitely my biggest accomplishment. I mean, even now it hasn't fully gone away. Like I'm still nervous in some meetings and maybe on a date here and there. But I mean, obviously it's gotten a long way better. But um, a big challenge back in the day for sure.
You just changed the meaning of inspiration for me. So I think that would help everyone understand what that really means. And personal things are way more complicated, and especially being in a customer facing role. And only imagine how much um, you went through. And seeing you here, I'm sure that anyone who might be going through any difficulty in life, they would take you as inspiration. And the things that you have achieved, not just professionally but personally. So I'm sure this is going to be very meaningful to many people.
Thank you. Good to hear for sure.
Yes. So talking about the moments you're most proud of, let's also talk about the memories that you have treasured the most and the ones that have really stuck with you.
Ooh, I mean, overall, I think that's pretty easy for me. I've always really enjoyed my time as a student, in spite of all those challenges. Like, on one hand, it was the most challenging part of my life to some degree. At the same time, the most exciting as well, because having been a student, I had like almost unlimited opportunities, and all the doors are open. Um, in terms of having easier access to certain resources, whether it's online discounts or freebies here and there, or like reaching out to companies asking for assistance with some sort of project. It's just a million times easier um, to build your career and build a business as well, build a network, be invited to conferences, what have you, while being a student. I'm not sure exactly why that is, because like as soon as you stop being a student, you no longer qualify for a lot of those opportunities, and so it doesn't last long. But really, really important, I think, to make the most of that kind of experience.
So it's interesting. And then I'll make sure to invite you for more and more events now. Now that you have told me that you missed that part. So sorry, but you are stuck with this engagement model. So, and of course, I see you as mentor. I'm sure you've mentored many other people. So, I would want some advice from you for the people who are still searching for the direction, for the clarity in their professional journey. So, what would that be?
Uh, Clarity in terms of like what to focus on in their careers, I guess, like what decisions to make in terms of industries or roles.
So let's say I would divide it in three levels. Let's say someone is an aspiring product manager. Someone is aspiring to be a product lead. They are already product managers, that is second level. And someone needs to decide on how to start their entrepreneurial journey. So let's talk about these three things. What would your direction be? Would your advice be to follow what footsteps of your own, or any suggestions to define the direction for their own journeys?
Yeah, I think it's really important for everyone to find their niche or multiple niches, even if it's not necessarily an obvious one to begin with. But to do that, what I've always told people is just do what comes naturally. Find what your true passions are, whether they're directly um, immediately obvious in terms of like a business application or not. Just pick out things that you're good at, whether it's music or literature, things that are often considered not career building skills. When you end up, for example, applying as a okay, so let's say you're you have a history of teaching. You had a great teaching career, and now you want to transition into product management. Huge difference, right? But go for a product management in education, for example, in ed tech. Or maybe you have a background in medicine, go into something related to medical products. Those things are a little more obvious in terms of your actual resume, but look beyond that and look into your just general skills and hobbies around the house. There's a lot of very interesting companies and startups and other products that are very specialized in a particular area, and it's really hard for them to actually find talent that matches their needs. And when you do have certain skills that others don't, and you tie that to your product management or entrepreneurial career, I think that is where you can really make magic happen. And it's very often overlooked, unfortunately. But I do think there's a lot of potential in finding creative connections between the various things that you've been exposed to uh, in your life. And so find your niche, pursue it. And I mean, you can take an occasional detour, but remember what you're really meant to be doing.
That's amazing. Now I'll add another tricky question. So you talked about one example, the medical one. Let's say someone has a personal reason to go for medtech, but they have no experience in the medical field. Would it be a good idea or a bad idea to start an entrepreneurial journey on that side?
If they really like a certain field but don't have any experience in it, um, you know, I would say go for it. If you're able to fill in the gaps with other um, aspects of your experience that are meaningful to the employer and they hire you, or if you just want to start something completely new on your own and you have no experience in it, well, start it and learn. Just learn on the job. I mean, I've seen a lot of people do career transitions, completely unexpected ones, even in product management, going from something very consumer facing to something extremely technical. And it works really well. It's just, I'll always be open to learning.
One example here, by the way, from consumer facing to technical. So, yes. And that is very interesting. I'm sure people will be willing to take more risks, obviously calculated ones, but more risks after listening from the expert himself. And given that you have uh, shared some really meaningful experiences with us, what legacy do you hope to leave behind? And it could be as a mentor, as an entrepreneur, as a leader of different sorts.
Oh my, a legacy. Uh, I'm not so sure about legacy. I mean, I want to die knowing I have spent my time on this earth as productively as I could have, to improve the lives of people, to make the world more sustainable. I mean, I don't have any, I guess, more specific uh, desires than that. I guess um, just want to die being happy, having done everything I possibly could have. So
No, that is no more specificity. You already talked about improving people's lives and sustainability. So just wow on that one. And anything that you would like to add before we close the call?
um, be ambitious. Be ambitious and don't be afraid to try something new, to learn something new, uh, to take a different path and try things out. Because if you don't try, you don't succeed.
Very true. And that's a very good note on which people would go and take action, I feel. So, thank you so much for joining us today. It is a true pleasure to be one of your students and to be able to host you as well. So, thank you for accepting and thank you for doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's been a great pleasure, and you ask like really good questions. So keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Means a lot.